This video will use Civil 3D 2018 and go over text, dimensioning, and multi-leaders. We'll go over Mtext and text. So we'll go over the text styles that are in the Maryland templates, the annotated properties, how to create and edit the Mtext. Also dimensioning, go over create, edit, and the different styles associated with the dimensioning. And then finally, we'll go in a little bit of the multi-leaders, what the styles are, and how to create and modify them. So most people are familiar with creating Mtext. Basically, it's a single multi-line text or Mtext object. With the built-in editor, you can format the text appearance, columns, and boundaries. After you specify the point for the opposite corner when the ribbon is active, the text editor ribbon contextual tab displays. If the ribbon is not active, the in-place text editor is displayed. If you specify one of the other options, or if you enter Mtext at the command prompt, Mtext bypasses the in-place text editor and displays additional command prompts. So with that all being said, if you type in Mtext and start typing, it'll default to the settings that are set up in the styles. Then once you select that text, then the contextual ribbon will come up, and then you'll have additional options, and we'll go over and look at that in Civil 3D. So with Civil 3D open, you can write in the command line Mtext, hit enter, and it'll prompt you for the first corner. Select that and hit the bottom right hand corner, and you start typing. This is Mtext. If you hit enter, it continues on. Just click outside the box, completes the command. So a couple things to notice here. If I select this, it'll give me grips where I can make it longer. But also, if I select it, if I go to properties, it gives me all the properties. Style, if it's annotative, what's it justified as. So if I double click, this opens up the contextual ribbon. So in the contextual ribbon, you'll see the style, formatting, paragraph, insert, spell check, tools, options, and closing the text editor. You can type in the command line Mtext toolbar. And the current one for keeping it off is set to 2. 1 turns it back on. Hit enter. So now, if I double click this text, the text toolbox or toolbar will show just above my text. So it's basically the same type of functions that will be shown in the contextual ribbon up above. So that's just a user preference, but you can turn that on and off. So I'll go ahead and turn that toolbar off again. And if you right click, you can go to recent input and then hit 2 to turn it off. Double click and you'll notice it's back off again. All right, so when you type in Mtext, this is what you get. So we're going to go a little bit over the style. So we'll go over text styles. Basically, when the templates were made up originally, there were some different text styles that were adapted from the national NRCS templates, and that's basically what we use on our templates. We've went with the Arial font, where I believe the national was in Romans. So we're still sticking with the Arial font in our templates. So these have been set up for you. So when you actually go in and have a create text, you'll actually have a style that's associated with it that you can select in the window. In the command line, you can type ST and it'll bring up the text style window as shown here. Or if you had the toolbar, you can just select the text style that way. Or if you select the actual Mtext and the contextual ribbon comes up, you'll have the style located in the left-hand corner of the ribbon. So the text styles that we'll go over, each one of the styles are located in the drawings. So once you have a text style, basically, you'll have all those associated within that template. You can remove styles if you need to. If they're associated with a block or something that's in a drawing, you can't remove that text, that style of text. So you can select any one and it'll give you some information. It'll give you the font, it'll give you the size, if it's annotative, and any type of effects, if it has a oblique angle or not, if it's upside down or backwards. And then it'll give you a little preview of what the text will actually look like. So you can select any one of these text and it'll give you all this information. One thing to notice on these text styles, this little star looking thing, which actually represents the end of an engineering scale, believe it or not, and that means it's annotative. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but just take note on that. To turn on the Mtext toolbar, explained earlier, you can type in Mtext toolbar. 1 turns it on and 2 turns it off. So again, a couple different ways. You can double click into your text. So if you double click, you'll see it come up here in the styles. And there's all the different styles listed here. It's kind of shown a little bit differently. So if you have a lot of styles, this might be a little bit more difficult to go through, but it does kind of give you a preview of what the styles will look like. Or you can type in ST on the command line in styles. So this brings up another window that you can see all the different styles here also. So keep in mind that, if you start out with a blank template with nothing, it might only have, 5 or 6 text styles associated with them. But as you bring in blocks, or maybe you select something from another drawing and bring it in, it's going to take those text styles and add it to that current drawing that you have. So just keep that in mind. So you'll see here, if we do dimensions, for example, it gives you the font name, the annotative text height, what it would look like, and then you can set current. All right, so that goes over text style a little bit. Now we'll go ahead and go over the annotative text. Annotative text, as explained before, it looks like a little star, but it actually represents the end of an engineering level. So annotative text, what's nice about annotative text is that it's scaled along with your drawing. So as you add scales to each one of your viewports or your drawing space, your annotative text takes on those scales also. Whereas if it wasn't annotative, it wouldn't adjust accordingly. So that's basically what this is explaining. If a scale is not assigned to an annotation object but is used in a viewport, the annotation object is not displayed. So that's very important to note. So if you were actually to put in text that was 1 inch equals 10 feet and it wasn't annotative, and you made a viewport that was 1 inch equals 20 feet, and you had text that was created in 1 inch equals 10 non-annotative, it would not show up in the 1 inch equals 20 foot viewport. So when you go into the text style again, you'll see the little box that is checked with the annotative, check where the size is, and it has the little star next to it, meaning that it's annotative. So this is a test of annotative scale 1 inch equals 20 foot. So this was annotative scale 1 inch equals 20. When you create annotative text, down at the bottom right hand corner of your screen, you'll see three different annotative icons. Scale text was created in model space at 1 inch equals 20, which is shown here. Show annotation objects at current scale. If you select that, it's going to show those at that current scale. So if we select this scale, 1 inch equals 10, it's not going to show that text. Add scales to annotative objects when the annotation scale changes. This is very important. So it's adding scales to that text or objects that is annotative. So when you change the scales, it's also changing the annotative scale of that text or object that is being changed, the scale of it. So it's very important to have both of these on. When they are blue, they are on. So the one with the circle and the one with the lightning bolt, they're the most important ones to have on. So this text was created in model space at 1 inch equals 20 foot scale. Box was drawn around the text at 1 inch equals 20 foot scale. If you were to change the scale in model space, the text would disappear because it would only show in the scale it was created in. In order for the text to show at all scales, select the two annotative buttons as described before. So once we change that scale from 1 inch equals 20 and we change it to 1 inch equals to 30, you'll notice there's no text showing. Now we go back and change it. 1 inch equals 30. Now the text is shown because objects at current scale is turned on. The model space scale was changed to 1 inch equals 40 foot, and now the text is shown 2 times larger than when it was created 1 inch equals 20 foot, because the add scales to annotative objects was on. As you draw a model space and continue to add different scales, you will notice that because you have the add scales to annotative objects turned on. When you select any of the Mtext, you will notice it will all show on all the different scales that it was created in. To turn this off, type in the command line selection, Anno display, and set that to 0. So I'll go ahead and show this example using Civil 3D. So what we're going to do is right now I'm going to turn these off. And right now we're in 1 inch equals 20 scale. I'm just going to make I'm going to call it Mtext. And just call this is a test of annotative scale. I'm going to make this long enough. Okay. So right now, if you notice, if I double click on this, my text style, right now, if I go under properties, is under notation, notes and dimension, sorry. So if I select on the properties, it's notes and dimensioning. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and select my style as 1D notation. Okay, so my text style has been set up as 1D notation. It is annotative. So I created this in 1 inch equals 20. I'm just going to draw a box around this. Let me change this to text layer. And then I'll create my box in an annotation layer. So now we have a box that shows text that was created in 1 inch equals 20 foot scale with a box drawn around it. Now if I go ahead and change my scale, as described in the instructions, to 1 inch equals 30, my text disappears. So in order for that text to stay, now if I draw, another text, 1 inch equals 30, Mtext, this is so now it was drawn in 1 inch equals 30. You'll notice the two different ones I put that on the text layer, but it shows there's my 20, there's my 30. So to keep in mind that even though it's annotative, these are not selected. So it's not showing annotation objects at the current scale. So if I created this, let's go back to the 1 inch equals 20, select this, and then we're going to go 30, 40, and 50. Okay, I'm just going to delete this one. So now I have this selected, show annotation objects always. Now if I go ahead to add scales to annotative objects when the annotation scales changes, select that. Now if I go to 1 inch equals 40, you'll notice the scale of my text changes. So it's 2 times larger than that box was that was created in 1 inch equals 20 foot scale. So if we do 60, 3 times, and if we do 10, it's going to be half the size of that block that was made in 1 inch equals 20 scale. So that basically adds all the different scales that you go through on that Mtext if it's annotative. So the selection anno display, I have mine turned off already. I set it to 1. So when you select your scale, it'll now show all the different scales that this was created at with that annotation scale display on. So you just want to make sure you turn that off. 0 turns it off. So now if I select it, it'll show that it's not all the different scales. Put this back to 1 to 20. All right, so that gives a little bit overview of the annotative text. Multi-line text or Mtext. We went over this a little bit. Mtext, you can create several paragraphs of text as a single multi-line text or Mtext object. With the built-in editor, you can format the text appearance, columns, and boundaries. We've done this already, but basically you just draw one corner to the bottom right-hand corner and start writing. You hit enter, it goes to the next line. You actually have to click on the outside of the box to exit the command. So this just goes over the text again. When the mtext command is executed in the command line and after you draw the text box around the area, that's down here at the bottom. Text formatting toolbar may be turned on or off by typing in the command line mtext toolbar. 1 turns it on and 2 turns it off. And then also you have the contextual ribbon for text editor, which is up above. When you actually select the text, you'll have the ribbon that comes up here. So these are just going over the different buttons on the Mtext. Down at the bottom of the ribbon, the style, the formatting, paragraph, the insert, spell check, tools, and options. So I just kind of went over ones that I use on a regular basis. One thing that a lot of people don't realize on spell check, you can turn that on or off. And also you can actually do a spell check throughout the whole document too if you want to. But the spell check actually has it in the Mtext and it'll underline the word as you're writing your text, and you can right click and you can change it, add it to the dictionary, just like almost like in Microsoft Word or Excel, any of the Office products. It's basically using it that way. Tools, one thing that I will bring up here is users can find the specific text and or words and replace it with something else defined by the user. The all caps function is located here under the tools. So I've gotten questions before where, I can't, every time I type it's in all caps. Well, this is where you can find it in the tools on the text editor and you can uncheck it. And I'll show you that here in a minute when I open up Civil 3D. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Civil 3D and go over some of these functions with you. So again, double click. Here's all the different uh, styles that you can choose from. You can make it bold. You can italicize it. You can have lines cross through it. You can do uppercase, lowercase, justification. You could select it with a drop down, middle, left, right, or you can do it here and hover over the different icons. You can also do bullets. You can do columns, lettered. And then if you expand this out even further, you can add tabs. You can do indents, paragraph alignments here also. So you can really get into a lot of stuff in the paragraph. Columns. So dynamic columns, sometimes if you're writing in Mtext, this will be the default. Make sure it's set to no columns because sometimes you'll write something and it'll jump over to another side of that line and what's going on? But the default is dynamic columns. So if you're having problems with text that is jumping over to another, side of an actual line, just make sure the columns is turned off. Add symbols. So if you're doing like a center line or degrees or an angle, now they have, squared and cubed. Instead of using the actual uh, command line to put that in, you can just, hit the number. For example, if you were to type in uh, feet and you want to do squared, you can either go up here to do the columns and hit squared, or you can right click and do the same thing and come into symbol and you can say we'll do degrees on that one. So there's a couple different ways of doing it. The same way with the all caps. If you right click, you get a lot of these same type of commands that you get in the ribbon also. So that's the symbols. Fields, they're used to, again, spell check. You can turn that on and off. Find and replace, that's a nice tool. If you're looking for a specific, text that you might have, if it's a county, for example, and you wanted to replace county with your county's name, you can type in county and replace it with your county's name. So in other words, if you wanted to find scale, I want to replace it with Cecil. Find next, and it highlights scale, and you can replace it, and it's going to replace it with whatever you put that in there as. You can have the ruler on, you can have it off. You can have more options, character set. You can show the toolbar. That's another way of getting to the toolbar. And always display as WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, is what's shown up here. That's pretty much it for the text dimensioning or the text editor and going over the toolbar and the properties of the text. Express Tools. Express Tools is located on the ribbon where there are additional functions for text. You can align text to an arc, convert text to Mtext. On the command line, you can just type in text to Mtext or enclose the text in an object command line T circle. So Express Tools, where is that located? If you go up top on your ribbon, Express Tools, you'll see one for blocks, but we're going to concentrate on the text here. So A for arc. Select the arc align, select the actual arc itself. Select the style. Now you'll notice here on the properties, the text height, it's actually, even though the style is set here, it doesn't take on any of the properties. So you actually have to put in the text height itself. So 1.26, and this is a test of arc text. And if you wanted to do a different style, you could go ahead and click OK. So this just shows you, and then this just shows you the actual text on the arc, and then you can delete that arc off if you need to. But then you can adjust that text based off of the arc size too. So the text size will stay the same, but it'll just follow that arc the same way. Convert to Mtext. So text is another way of just drawing text instead of multi-line text. So if I double click this, you'll see there's no properties. It's just straight text. If I hit the enter button, basically gets out of the command. So a lot of older drawings, or not older drawings, but a lot of older styles were drawn with just text. So to convert that into Mtext, you can multi-line text, you can go ahead and select it and convert to Mtext. Convert to Mtext and select it, hit enter, double click it, and now you'll see the formatting come up. Or in the command line, you can type text to Mtext in the command line. So that's a little bit on the Express tools. And it's just on the text here. Enclose an object. Okay, so on the Express tools, also enclose an object. So if I select this, enclose an object, I can select the offset 0.35. We could do circles, so I'm going to do a circle around it. Another way of doing that is typing in T-circle. It's the same command. You can select it, hit enter, offset the same, and we'll do a rectangle around that. Same command, just different location of where to get it. All right, so we'll go over dimensioning now. You can create several types of dimensions for a variety of object types in many orientation and alignments. You can use a dim command to create dimensions automatically according to the object type that you want to dimension. You can control the appearance of it. So we'll just go a little bit over that on the toolbar. Under the annotate, you'll see the dimensioning right next to the text up top. To change the dimensioning style, you can, on the contextual ribbon, you can hit the drop down, or DDIM will also bring up the window in the command line. And again, you can modify these, but these are all within the templates. Anything that has, again, the star next to it is annotative, so keep that in mind. So when you select dimensioning, once you have it, you can select on the properties, and it gives a whole bunch of properties that are associated with that dimensioning. So you'll have the miscellaneous, the style, the annotative, and the scale it was created in. And then you can change the arrow types. On the arrow types, you can have closed blank, oblique, open. There's different ones on here that you can go through. And then you can have a lot of different lines within that dimensioning that you can change also, the colors and such. And then, of course, the text itself. If you annotate something and it's annotative at 20.01 feet, and if you want to override that text, you can override that text here by typing in 20 or 200, what it's supposed to be. Just keep in mind that if you override that text, that dimensioning is then not actual dimensioning because you changed that text. So I wouldn't recommend that you do the text override unless you necessarily have to. And you can change the text rotation here and how it's direction. Primary units, decimal, and then you can actually get down to precision. So if you're doing in feet or inches, you can actually get the precision on that. So some people like to use the toolbars. You can add the dimensioning toolbar into your toolbar if you want to. But again, if you do the dimensioning, with the contextual ribbon, it'll pop up. But if you want to add that dimensioning toolbar, if you go into View, under Toolbars, under AutoCAD, you can add the dimension toolbar doing it that way. It just gives you a lot more options where you can just do the angular, the arc, and quick dimensioning. Shows that the dimensioning type, style. It's all user's preference. So we'll go ahead and draw a line. Polyline, and we'll make it 200 feet long. So now I have my line drawn. So if you have the toolbar open, you can do the dimensioning that way. Or if you like using the command line, you can always type in the command line, DIM, for dimensioning. And you can select the line. And automatically you can see when I select it, it tells it's 200 feet. And again, keep in mind, you want to change your layer to annotation. So again, the dim, select the object. And then once you select it, it's going to go ahead and have you complete the command. Again, if you do dimensioning toolbar, you can select the linear, turn your object snap on. Here's the styles. So if you select change the dimensioning style, so right now everything is done on the A notation. But if we wanted to do B notation, set current, close, do another dimensioning here. And you see that dimensioning, the text is a little bit bigger. Errors stay the same size, but the text is just a little bit larger. So with the properties, you can double click on that dimensioning. You can change it here. If you hit the delete key, you can put in what you want. So if you go ahead and click on it, right click, properties, you can see all the different properties that are associated with this text. For example, if I delete that back out, it'll go back to the default. If I wanted to change the arrows, we can do that. And it gives each arrow. So if I wanted to have one closed and one not, you could. So you have all kinds of options for your arrows on the dimensioning. So you can do a lot of different things with the text styles and changing those, on the go, if you will. Now, if you were to change any of your text dimensioning styles, if you were to go in here and change or modify this, actual style, the 1dB notation style, if I wanted to have this one as closed, and the second one closed, click OK, set current, close, you'll see that style now, if I do the dimensioning, that dimensioning is now changed to that style. So the last thing we're going to go into is multileaders. So multileaders basically displays information using leader styles for text and objects. So multi-leader style can specify formatting for landing lines, leader lines, arrowheads, and context. For example, the standard multi-leader style uses a straight leader line with a closed-filled arrowhead and multi-line text content. Just keep in mind that annotated blocks cannot be used as either content or arrowheads in multi-leader objects. Once a multi-leader style has been defined, you can set it as a current multi-leader style to be used when the ml leader command is invoked. So again, in the toolbar, if you want to actually, have a multi-leader toolbar shown, you can go into your toolbars again and add that under the AutoCAD and select multi-leader. Otherwise, you can go in the Annotate tab, and under Leaders, you'll see the multi-leader. So annotate multi-leader, and then here's the different styles for the multi-leaders that are currently set up. And you can change those just like you can in the dimensioning. And again, you can select the multi-leader and go to the properties and change all the different styles of the arrow, if it's an arc, if it's a line, many different options on that. So again, with the multi-leader, here's the manager to modify it. You can change the leader format and the content that's in there, where it's located, and then also the leader structure, and if it's annotative or not. So I'll go ahead and show that in Civil 3D. So a couple ways that you can add multi-leaders. I always like to type in LE for leader. And as a default, as you start drawing, hit enter, and then it automatically comes up with the Mtext. You can hit enter twice and it'll get out of the Mtext box. So again, if you select the actual text itself, you can go into formatting and changing that. Same way with the leader. You can double click the leader. You can change it close fill, dot, whatever. Or you can right click, go to properties, brings up the property box. So there's multiple ways that you can get in there. So if you go up to annotate, you'll see the multi-leader. If you expand that, you can modify that. So the default leader format is spline. So this was done with a Q leader, which was just LE for leader. And you'll notice with that, it is separate. The text is separate from the actual leader. Whereas if you go into multi-line leader, which is M leader, you'll notice this is a spline. And you'll notice when I select that leader, both of them are selected. They're together as one unit. And again, you have the styles of that leader where you can modify those. If you want to make it straight, you can make it straight. Close, and you'll see it change. This concludes the Maryland training on text dimensioning and multi-leaders.